we've come so far away from way of nature. So I almost feel that we are collectively sick. So collectively insane. Collectively, we are suffering from psychosis. And to me, it's no longer subtle anymore.
When you look at traditional cultures, they are the byproduct of cultural evolution. And so you have all of this lineage of spirituality, of culture, philosophy that has stood the test of time. And what we see in the West now is we're trying to just eradicate that within one generation. Well, let's be frank, since the social media era, so within 10 years, just trying to get rid of traditional cultures and this and that to appease certain people in society. And this, again, is a stepping away from simplicity into complexity. And so Lao Tzu's point here, in some sense, is that nature itself is simple, right? Like strong wind doesn't last all morning, sudden rain doesn't last all day. Our speech should reflect that as well. It shouldn't last all day. We shouldn't have so many beliefs and so many opinions in our mind. We shouldn't be overly conditioned.
Right.
But what has happened, particularly in the West, is you're getting this element of complexity, and we're becoming far too complex. And as you said, we are moving into some sort of form of mass psychosis where people are disconnected from their true nature.
Yes.
And so they will try to change everything about themselves to suit whatever the agenda of the moral flavors of the time are. But those moral flavors of the time are completely out of sync with our traditional cultures and lineage that have stood the test of time. And so we're just trying to go from here to there in just a few years.
Yes.
And so nature is fundamentally simple, and humans are fundamentally simple as well, but we have a propensity to make life overly complicated. And that's what's happening in the modern day, especially, particularly because of technology. It's becoming far too complex. So when you have complexity, what do you have? You have fragmentation. So you have a fragmentation of society and also a fragmentation of the psyche. And that's why you are seeing this mass psychosis within the world today.
I mean, we all are conditioned in certain way, right? Because of our background that we all have and the education that we were brought up with. And But as time goes by, it feels like that the thickness of conditioning is getting thicker and thicker and thicker, and the layers getting add on top of each other, and that too many layers of conditioning now. And how ridiculous it sounds that nowadays they trying to implement some very inappropriate education to younger underage children, which is, I think, again, that is a sign of mass psychosis to me. So that more like rules and regulations get introduced to society, and for some reason, some people agree with that, and we bring more conditioning to come to our life. Right. The more we are conditioned in different ways, more we are going to be disconnected with nature. Not only with nature, more so with our own true self. Right. Just we're only going to get further and further away from who we truly are and where we really came from. And without that understanding, I don't know what can really happen. It's not going to be too nice.
No. Well, that's why this chapter is about remembering the Tao. And as you said, with all of these layers of conditioning going on top, they wouldn't even know what Tao is because they've gone so far away from it. They have no idea what it is because they live in such complexity. And I've mentioned on the podcast before a Taoist hermit I know in China, a lady, and for her, having a gas oven, like a little one of these ones for camping, for her, it was a big decision because that's stepping too close towards civilization. Because she always used just fire, just sticks and that to make her food. And she lives in a hut up in the mountains. And lives a very simple life, very pure. Like if you look at her eyes, it'll make you cry because the purity in the eyes you won't see in society, particularly with the people that we are talking about who play the victim, who have a lot of anger and that within their eyes. But this lady just living in the mountains is following the hermit tradition of Daoism. And that was a big decision. Like, I think, I'm becoming too civilized if I have this little gas thing.
Because when things get more convenient for you, that it does eliminate certain faculty in your mind. Then also you learn how it's like to have a bit of a comfort.
Yeah.
And that does something to your mind as well.
Yeah. Comfortability and convenience kills the Tao. It really does. Because humans are the perfect technology in the universe. We are like the tip of the fractal.
Yes.
So all of the Big Bang and that is flowing through us to self-actualize, to become conscious of the universe. And what we're doing now is we're stepping further and further into comfortability and convenience. So we keep losing the sense of the Tao because we're outsourcing fundamental tasks that we do to other things.
Yes.
Okay, usually I wash the dishes. Now I have a dishwasher. Usually I scrub my clothes with my hands. Now I have a washing machine.
Yes.
Now, some may say, well, that's, it's frivolous. And look, I can sympathize with that too. Okay, it's not that bad. But there's this continual outsourcing, which separates us from nature and is turning us into just this constant couch potato, where we're just focusing just on the screen, our phones, and we're living in a digital world while we're getting unhealthy in our mind and body because we continually outsourcing things. And one of the simple, like a Zen meditation, for example, is, like we get so caught up in our mind, right? We get so caught up in the complexity of our mind because we're always focused on ourselves. And we wonder why we suffer with anxiety and so forth and so on. Because we always want to do things throughout the day, right? But instead of what you want to do, you need to focus on what needs to be done.
Yes.
So, okay, the rubbish needs to be taken out. Take it out.
Just do it.
Need to wash the dishes. Wash the dishes.
Yes.
And so what you find then, when you just do what needs to be done, you have a state of equanimity because you're not having these big dopamine dumps where the scale is going like this from high to low, where you want to keep the scale, you need to have a little bit of variety, but you don't want it tipping like this. And that's how the Taoist lives. That's why Lao Tzu constantly is talking about not having excessive joy or excessive suffering.
Yes.
Having perfect balance. Because you build this psychologically sane and healthy individual, what the universe intended for us, as opposed to believing in all of these crazy ideas and opinions that society promotes and wants people to follow.
Yes.
And usually they want you to follow them for financial ends that don't suit you, but suit the bottom line for the companies and that promote them. So this continual outsourcing of activity and skills for humans is killing us deep down. Like you were alluding to, like you feel it feels a bit empty when you have all of this comfortability and convenience.